This NDE will make you question everything. Atheist dies and encounters a being that defies logic. John Whitaker was a man whose life was defined by his dedication to science and rationality. As an accomplished neurologist, he spent his days immersed in the complexities of the human brain, confident that every mystery could be unraveled through logic and empirical evidence. His worldview was firmly grounded in atheism, and he found solace in the certainty that there was no higher power governing the universe. For John, life was a series of biological processes, devoid of any spiritual dimension. John's daily routine was meticulously structured. He would wake up early, prepare a healthy breakfast, and head to the hospital where he worked long hours, often losing himself in research and patient care. His colleagues admired his precision and dedication, but few truly knew him. Outside of work, John's life was quiet. He enjoyed solitary activities like reading scientific journals and hiking in the nearby mountains, where he could ponder the intricacies of nature without interruption. John's family life was equally serene, though somewhat distant. His wife, Emily, a schoolteacher, respected his need for solitude, though she wished he could be more emotionally available. They had 2 children, Sarah and David, who adored their father but often felt disconnected from his world of scientific inquiry. John's atheistic beliefs sometimes clashed with Emily's more spiritual perspective, yet they maintained a respectful balance, avoiding deep discussions on the subject. Despite his apparent contentment, John occasionally experienced moments of existential doubt. He wondered if his unwavering faith in science was enough to explain the full spectrum of human experience. These fleeting thoughts, however, were quickly dismissed as he delved deeper into his work, reinforcing his belief that there was nothing beyond the material world. Then, one fateful day, everything changed. John suffered a near-death experience that shattered his understanding of reality. During a routine hike, he slipped on a rocky trail and plummeted down a steep slope, his body battered and broken. As he lay unconscious, hovering between life and death, John encountered a being of light that defied all logic and reason. This encounter was vivid, overwhelming, and utterly transformative. When he awoke in the hospital, surrounded by concerned faces, John knew he had been irrevocably changed. The being of light had shown him glimpses of a reality beyond the physical, filled with love, peace, and a profound sense of purpose. This experience ignited a spiritual awakening that would lead John on a tumultuous journey from atheism to faith, challenging everything he had ever believed. As John navigated this new path, he faced inner turmoil and external conflicts. His relationships with Emily, Sarah, David, and his colleagues were tested as he grappled with his evolving beliefs. John's story is one of struggle, revelation, and ultimate redemption. A testament to the transformative power of near-death experiences and the profound spiritual journeys they can inspire. Before we delve into the depths of John's incredible journey, we invite you to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let us know where you're from and if you've ever experienced or heard of a transformative near-death experience. Your engagement helps us bring more inspiring stories like John's to light. Hi, I'm John Whitaker, and this is my story. My life before the accident was simple and straightforward. I was a neurologist, deeply committed to science and the belief that everything could be explained through logic and empirical evidence. My days were filled with the routine of hospital rounds, patient consultations, and research. My colleagues respected me for my dedication and precision, but few knew me beyond my professional facade. Outside of work, I found solace in the solitude of hiking, reading scientific journals, and spending quiet evenings with my wife, Emily, and our 2 children, Sarah and David. One sunny afternoon, while hiking alone in the nearby mountains, I decided to take a path I had never explored before. The trail was steep and rocky, but I welcomed the challenge. As I navigated a particularly narrow section, my foot slipped, and before I could react, I was tumbling down the slope. The world became a blur of pain and chaos until everything went black. In the darkness, I found myself floating above my broken body, looking down at the scene with a strange detachment. Suddenly, I was enveloped in a brilliant, warm light. It was unlike anything I had ever experienced, pure, overwhelming, and profoundly peaceful. In that light, I sensed a presence, a being that exuded unconditional love and understanding. It wasn't a voice that spoke to me, but a deep, intuitive knowledge that filled my entire being. The being of light communicated that my life had a purpose beyond what I could comprehend. I was shown moments from my past, both joyous and painful, and I saw how each experience had shaped who I was. I felt an intense connection to everyone and everything, as if I were part of a vast, intricate tapestry of existence. This revelation was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. My rigid, atheistic worldview crumbled in the face of this undeniable truth. When I awoke in the hospital, the physical pain was excruciating, but it paled in comparison to the turmoil raging within me. I was surrounded by worried faces, Emily, Sarah, David, and my colleagues, all relieved that I had survived. But I knew I was no longer the same person. The experience had shattered my understanding of reality, leaving me confused and frightened. The days that followed were a blur of medical treatments and physical recovery. Yet the real struggle was internal. I tried to rationalize the experience, to fit it into the framework of my scientific beliefs, but it was impossible. The memory of the light and the being lingered, compelling me to reconsider everything I had held to be true. I felt an overwhelming need to understand what had happened to me. I began researching near-death experiences, reading accounts from others who had encountered similar phenomena. Each story resonated with mine, yet each was unique. The common thread was a profound spiritual awakening that defied logical explanation. Sharing my experience with Emily was difficult. She listened patiently as I recounted the details, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and curiosity. "I don't know what to make of this, John," she said, "but I can see it's changed you." Our conversations became more frequent and more intense as we both struggled to make sense of this new reality. Returning to work was equally challenging. My colleagues noticed the change in me, though few dared to ask about it. Dr. Collins, my mentor and friend, finally pulled me aside. "John, you seem different. What's going on?" he asked. I hesitated, unsure how to explain something so profoundly personal and inexplicable. "I had an experience, a near-death experience, that changed my perspective," I finally said. He looked at me with a mix of skepticism and concern, but didn't press further. Despite my attempts to move forward, the experience continued to haunt me. I felt isolated, caught between my old beliefs and the new reality I had encountered. It was a lonely place, filled with confusion and doubt. But deep within, I sensed that this was just the beginning of a much larger journey, one that would challenge me in ways I had never imagined. The more I pondered my near-death experience, the more I realized that I couldn't simply return to my old life. The encounter with the being of light had left an indelible mark on my soul, and I needed to understand what it meant. Yet, every attempt to reconcile this experience with my scientific background left me more confused. One evening, as I sat alone in my study, the house quiet after everyone had gone to bed, I decided to journal my thoughts. Writing had always helped me process complex ideas, and I hoped it might do the same for the turmoil in my mind. "I don't know where to start," I wrote. "The experience was so vivid, so real, but how do I explain it? How do I fit it into a framework of understanding that doesn't include anything beyond the physical world?" The next day, I felt a strange compulsion to visit a nearby church. I hadn't been inside a church since my childhood, but something about the experience drew me there. The church was empty, save for an elderly woman lighting candles near the altar. The silence was profound, almost palpable. I sat in a pew near the back, my thoughts swirling. As I sat there, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me since the accident. I began to pray, though it felt awkward and unfamiliar. "If you're there, if this is real, please help me understand," I whispered. The days that followed were a mixture of research, prayer, and introspection. I continued to read about near-death experiences, looking for patterns and insights. Each story was unique, yet they all shared a common thread of profound spiritual awakening. I realized that many people had faced similar struggles to mine, trying to reconcile their experiences with their previous beliefs. At home, the changes in me were becoming more apparent. Emily noticed my newfound interest in spirituality and was cautiously supportive. "John, I can see you're searching for answers," she said one evening as we sat together. "Just know that I'm here for you, whatever you find." My children, too, sensed the shift in me. Sarah, our eldest, asked me directly one night, "Dad, are you okay? You seem different." I struggled to find the words to explain. "I had an experience, Sarah. It made me question everything I thought I knew. I'm trying to understand it." Work, however, was a different story. I felt increasingly disconnected from my colleagues and my research. The questions that had once driven me seemed trivial compared to the existential dilemmas I now faced. Dr. Collins, ever perceptive, noticed my distraction. "John, you're not yourself. Maybe you should take some time off." Reluctantly, I agreed. Stepping away from my work was difficult, but I knew it was necessary. I needed space to explore this new path without the constant demands of my profession. During my time off, I immersed myself in spiritual literature, books on theology, philosophy, and the accounts of others who had faced similar experiences. I began to see connections between my near-death experience and the teachings of various spiritual traditions. Slowly, a new understanding started to take shape. One night, as I lay in bed, I had a vivid dream. I was walking through a dense forest, lost and confused. Suddenly, the being of light appeared before me, illuminating the path ahead. "You must trust in the journey," it said. "You are not alone." I woke with a start, the dream lingering in my mind. The message was clear. I needed to trust in the process, even if I didn't have all the answers. This journey was about more than just understanding. It was about transformation. Emily continued to support me, though I could see the worry in her eyes. "John, you're changing so much," she said one morning over breakfast. "I just hope you're finding what you need." "I think I am," I replied. "It's a difficult path, but I feel like I'm finally starting to understand." Despite the progress I was making, doubts still plagued me. I feared the reactions of my friends, my colleagues, and even my community. How would they respond to the new me? Would they understand, or would they reject me? These questions haunted me as I continued my search for truth. My journey had only just begun, but I felt a growing sense of purpose. The near-death experience had opened a door to a new reality, one that was rich with possibilities and deeper understanding. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them. With the support of my family and a newfound faith in the journey, I took my first steps towards a new life, leaving behind the certainty of my old beliefs for the unknown promise of spiritual awakening. As I delved deeper into my spiritual journey, I found myself increasingly drawn to the stories and experiences of others who had undergone similar transformations. One story in particular stood out to me. It was about a man named Mark, who, like me, had been an atheist before his near-death experience. His account was strikingly similar to mine, with one key difference. Mark had experienced a vision that provided him with a profound revelation about the nature of existence. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something significant about Mark's story that I needed to understand. I reached out to him through an online support group for near-death experiencers, and to my surprise, he responded quickly. We arranged to meet at a quiet cafe in the city. When we met, Mark was warm and welcoming, his eyes reflecting a depth of understanding that came from his own journey. As we sat down with our coffees, he began to share his experience in detail. "John, I understand exactly what you're going through," he said. "The confusion, the doubt, the sense of being torn between two worlds. I've been there." Mark's vision during his near-death experience had shown him the interconnectedness of all life. He described it as seeing a vast web of light, with each thread representing a different soul, all interconnected and interdependent. This vision had fundamentally altered his understanding of existence, and it was clear that it had a profound impact on him. As he spoke, I felt a sense of resonance. His description of the web of light echoed the sense of connection I had felt during my own encounter with the being of light. "Mark, your vision, it's so similar to what I experienced. The sense of connection, the overwhelming love and peace. But how do you reconcile that with our scientific understanding?" Mark smiled, a hint of sadness in his eyes. "It's not easy, John, but I came to realize that science and spirituality aren't necessarily in conflict. They can coexist, each providing different perspectives on the same truth. My vision taught me that the material world is just one layer of reality, and that there's a deeper, more profound dimension that we can only glimpse." His words struck a chord with me. I had always viewed the world through the lens of science, but Mark's perspective opened my eyes to the possibility that there was more to existence than I had ever imagined. As our conversation continued, Mark revealed another aspect of his experience that took me by surprise. John, after my near-death experience, I started having dreams that seemed to guide me, to show me the way forward. These dreams led me to a community of people who had similar experiences. They became my support system, my spiritual family. The idea of being guided by dreams was both intriguing and unsettling. I had always dismissed dreams as mere byproducts of brain activity, but Mark's conviction made me reconsider. "Do you think these dreams have a purpose?" I asked. "I do," Mark replied. "I believe they're a way for the divine to communicate with us, to help us navigate our journey. You might start experiencing them too, if you haven't already." That night, as I lay in bed, Mark's words echoed in my mind. I felt a strange sense of anticipation, wondering if I too would begin to receive guidance through my dreams. The idea both excited and terrified me. If Mark was right, it meant that my journey was far from over. It was just beginning. Over the next few weeks, I found myself paying closer attention to my dreams, looking for any signs or messages. At first, they were just the usual fragmented images and scenes. But then one night, I had a dream that was startlingly vivid and coherent. In the dream, I was standing at the edge of a vast, dark forest. The being of light appeared before me, just as it had during my near-death experience. It reached out to me, and I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and love. "Trust the journey, John," it said. "You are not alone." I woke up with a start, my heart pounding. The dream felt so real, so significant. It was as if the being of light was guiding me, reassuring me that I was on the right path. I felt a renewed sense of purpose, a deeper connection to the spiritual journey I had embarked upon. With this revelation, I began to embrace my spiritual awakening more fully. I continued to explore different spiritual practices, from meditation to prayer, seeking to deepen my connection with the divine. I also started attending a local spiritual group that Mark had recommended, finding solace and support among others who had undergone similar transformations. As I opened myself up to this new reality, I found that my relationships with Emily, Sarah, and David began to shift. They saw the changes in me, and while they didn't fully understand, they were curious and supportive. Emily, in particular, was a pillar of strength, offering her love and encouragement as I navigated this uncharted territory. My journey was far from over, and I knew there would be many challenges ahead. But with the revelation of the interconnectedness of all life and the guidance of my dreams, I felt more prepared than ever to face whatever came next. After my conversation with Mark and the subsequent vivid dream, I knew that I had to share my experiences with my family. It wasn't going to be easy, but I hoped they would understand, or at least try to. That evening, as we sat around the dinner table, I took a deep breath and began to speak. "Emily, Sarah, David," I started, my voice slightly trembling. "I need to talk to you all about something very important. Since the accident, I've been on a spiritual journey, and I've experienced things that I can't explain with science alone." Emily's eyes widened, and I could see the concern etched on her face. Sarah and David looked at each other, confused but attentive. "I met with a man named Mark," I continued. "He had a near-death experience similar to mine, and he shared a vision that deeply resonated with me. He spoke of the interconnectedness of all life, like a vast web of light. And recently, I've started having dreams that seem to guide me, much like his." There was a moment of silence as they processed what I had just said. Emily was the first to respond. "John, this is a lot to take in. Are you sure these dreams are real? Couldn't they just be your mind trying to make sense of everything that's happened?" "I've thought about that," I replied. "But these dreams feel different. They're vivid and coherent, and they carry a sense of peace and purpose that I can't ignore." Sarah, ever the curious teenager, asked, "Dad, what do these dreams tell you? Are they like visions or just regular dreams?" I smiled at her inquisitiveness. "In my most recent dream, I was in a dark forest, and the being of light appeared again. It told me to trust the journey and reassured me that I'm not alone. It felt so real, so meaningful." David, my youngest, looked at me with wide eyes. "Are you going to start believing in God, Dad?" His innocent question hit me hard. I paused, searching for the right words. I'm not sure where this journey will lead, David, but I do know that it's changing the way I see the world. I feel like I'm discovering something important, something bigger than myself. Emily reached out and took my hand. John, I can see how much this means to you. I may not fully understand, but I want to support you. Just promise me you'll keep talking to us about what you're going through. I promise, I said, squeezing her hand. I want us to go through this together. In the days that followed, I tried to integrate my new insights into my daily life. It wasn't easy. At work, I felt increasingly alienated from my colleagues, who had no idea about the spiritual upheaval I was experiencing. Dr. Collins, always observant, called me into his office one afternoon. John, you've been different since the accident, distracted. Is everything okay? He asked, his tone filled with genuine concern. I took a deep breath. I've been going through a lot, Dr. Collins. The accident changed me in ways I never expected. I'm exploring a new path, spiritually. Dr. Collins raised an eyebrow but remained silent, prompting me to continue. I met someone who had a similar near-death experience, and he shared insights that resonated with me deeply. It's led me to question everything I thought I knew about life and existence. Dr. Collins nodded slowly. I can't say I fully understand, but I respect your journey. Just remember, it's okay to seek help if you need it. Sometimes, talking to a professional can provide clarity. I appreciated his understanding, even if it was limited. Thank you, Dr. Collins. I'll keep that in mind. As I navigated this new reality, I found solace in the spiritual group Mark had recommended. The members welcomed me warmly, each with their own stories of transformation and awakening. Sharing my experiences with them felt liberating. For the first time, I didn't feel like an outsider. One evening, after a particularly moving session, I spoke with Lydia, one of the group's longtime members. She had a gentle demeanor and a wisdom that came from years of spiritual practice. Lydia, do you ever struggle with balancing your spiritual beliefs and your daily life? I asked. She smiled softly. All the time, John, but I've learned that the spiritual journey is about integration, not separation. It's about finding a way to bring the insights and truths we discover into our everyday actions and relationships. Her words struck a chord with me. I realized that my journey wasn't about abandoning my old life, but about transforming it. It was about finding a new way to be in the world, one that embraced both the scientific and the spiritual. At home, Emily, Sarah, and David were adjusting to the changes in me. Emily and I had long conversations about faith and doubt, and while she was still skeptical, she was also open and supportive. Sarah began asking more questions, curious about my experiences and the books I was reading. David, in his own way, seemed to accept the new me without much fuss, his youthful openness a source of comfort. One weekend, I decided to take the family on a nature hike, a simple activity that allowed us to connect with each other and the world around us. As we walked through the forest, I felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that my journey was not mine alone. It was a shared path, one that would shape not just my life, but the lives of those I loved. As we reached a clearing and sat down to rest, I looked at my family and felt a surge of gratitude. My near-death experience had been a catalyst for profound change, but it was the support and love of my family that gave me the strength to embrace it. I was no longer alone on this journey, and that made all the difference. With my newfound spiritual awareness, I began to notice a shift in my relationships and everyday interactions. While my family was adjusting, not everyone in my life was as understanding or accepting. My closest friend, Matt, was particularly skeptical. Matt and I had known each other since college, and he had always been a staunch atheist, much like my former self. One evening, we met up for our usual Friday night drink at the local pub. As we settled into our seats, Matt gave me a curious look. John, Emily told me you've been going through some sort of spiritual awakening? What's going on, man? I took a sip of my drink, preparing myself for his reaction. Yeah, it's true. Since the accident, I've experienced things that I can't explain with science alone. It's changed the way I see the world. Matt chuckled, shaking his head. Come on, John. You don't really believe in all that spiritual mumbo-jumbo, do you? We've always been men of reason. I used to think that way, I admitted. But what I experienced, it was real, Matt. I can't deny it. It's opened my eyes to a reality beyond what we can see or measure. Matt leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. So, what now? You're going to start believing in fairy tales and invisible beings? It's not about fairy tales, I said, feeling a mix of frustration and sadness. It's about understanding that there's more to life than what we can perceive with our five senses. I'm not asking you to believe it, but I need you to respect that this is my journey. He sighed, clearly struggling to wrap his head around it. I don't know, John. This just doesn't sound like you. I'm worried you're losing yourself in this. I'm not losing myself, I insisted. I'm finding a part of myself I didn't know existed, and I need you, my friend, to support me, even if you don't understand. The tension between us lingered as we finished our drinks in relative silence. I knew this was the beginning of a challenging new dynamic in our friendship, one that would test its strength. At work, I faced another layer of difficulty. My newfound openness about my spiritual journey was met with mixed reactions. Some colleagues were supportive, while others were dismissive or even mocking. Dr. Collins remained professional, but I could sense his unease. One afternoon, I was called into a meeting with the hospital board. They expressed concerns about my recent behavior and its potential impact on my work and the hospital's reputation. Dr. Davis, the head of the board, Dr. Thompson, began, "We've noticed a change in your demeanor and focus since your accident. While we understand that you've been through a traumatic experience, we need to ensure that your personal beliefs do not interfere with your professional responsibilities." "I assure you, my personal beliefs have not and will not affect my professional duties," I responded calmly. "I remain committed to providing the best care for my patients." Dr. Thompson nodded, but his expression remained serious. "We trust your professional integrity, Dr. Davis, but we must ask that you keep your personal experiences and beliefs private while on duty. Our patients and staff need to see that you're fully dedicated to your work." I agreed, understanding their perspective, but feeling a pang of frustration. Balancing my spiritual journey with my professional life was proving to be more challenging than I had anticipated. Meanwhile, my involvement with the spiritual group continued to deepen. Lydia, who had become a close confidant, encouraged me to share my story with the group more openly. One evening, after much contemplation, I decided to speak at one of our meetings. As I stood before the group, my heart raced. "Hi everyone, my name is John, and I've been on a spiritual journey since my near-death experience. It's been a confusing and enlightening time, and I'm grateful to have found this community." The group listened intently as I recounted my experiences, from the accident to my conversations with Mark and the dreams that followed. When I finished, there was a moment of silence before the group erupted into applause. I felt a wave of relief and gratitude wash over me. After the meeting, a young woman named Claire approached me. "John, thank you for sharing your story. I've had similar experiences, and it's comforting to know I'm not alone." Her words reaffirmed the importance of community and sharing our journeys. It wasn't just about my own transformation. It was about connecting with others and supporting each other through our spiritual awakenings. Despite the support from the spiritual group, the tension at home and work continued to weigh on me. Emily and I had more frequent discussions about faith and spirituality, some ending in frustration and others in mutual understanding. Sarah's curiosity often led to deep conversations, while David remained a quiet observer, absorbing everything around him. One Sunday afternoon, I decided to take a drive to clear my mind. As I navigated the winding roads, I found myself heading towards the countryside, drawn by an inexplicable urge. I pulled over at a small, secluded chapel that I had never noticed before. It was an old, humble building, surrounded by trees and bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. I entered the chapel, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. I sat in one of the pews, closed my eyes, and began to meditate. As I focused on my breath, I felt a presence, a comforting energy that seemed to envelop me. In that moment, I realized that my journey was about more than just reconciling my beliefs with my old life. It was about finding a new way to live, one that integrated my spiritual experiences with my daily existence. It was about embracing the unknown and trusting that I was being guided towards a deeper understanding of myself and the world around me. As I left the chapel and drove home, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I knew that there would be more challenges ahead, but I also knew that I was not alone. My spiritual journey was a path of discovery, one that would continue to unfold in unexpected and transformative ways. The days following my visit to the chapel were a whirlwind of emotions and realizations. I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't known before, but it was accompanied by a persistent inner conflict. As my spiritual journey deepened, the divide between my old life and new beliefs grew more pronounced. One evening, as Emily and I were getting ready for bed, she brought up a concern that had been weighing on her mind. "John, I've been thinking a lot about what you said the other night, about your experiences and this new spiritual path you're on. I want to support you, but I'm struggling to understand it all." I sat down next to her, taking her hand in mine. "I know this is hard for you, Emily. It's hard for me too. Everything I thought I knew about the world has been turned upside down. I just need time to figure it all out." She nodded, her eyes filled with uncertainty. "I'm worried about the kids, John. They're noticing the changes in you, and I don't know how to explain it to them." "I'll talk to them," I promised. "I'll make sure they understand that I'm still the same person, just evolving. It's important that they feel safe and secure." The next day, I sat down with Sarah and David after dinner. "I know you both have noticed that I've been different since the accident," I began. "I want you to know that it's because I've been on a journey to understand what happened to me and what it means." Sarah, always inquisitive, asked, "Does this mean you're going to start believing in God, Dad?" I took a deep breath. "I'm still figuring that out, Sarah. But I'm learning that there's more to life than what we can see or measure. It's a journey, and I want you both to know that it's okay to ask questions and explore your own beliefs too." David, who had been quietly listening, finally spoke up. "Are you still going to be our dad, no matter what you believe?" I smiled, pulling him into a hug. "Of course, David. No matter what, I'll always be your dad. My love for you and Sarah doesn't change." As I navigated these conversations at home, my professional life presented its own set of challenges. My colleagues at the hospital had started to notice my changed demeanor and the occasional distracted moments. One afternoon during a particularly busy shift, I overheard two nurses talking about me. "Dr. Davis has been acting strange lately," one of them whispered. "Ever since his accident, it's like he's a different person." "I heard he's gotten into some kind of spiritual stuff," the other replied. "I hope it doesn't affect his work. He's always been so reliable." Their words stung, but I knew they were coming from a place of concern. I decided it was time to address the issue directly. At our next staff meeting, I took a moment to speak. "I know some of you have noticed changes in me since my accident," I began. "I want to assure you all that my commitment to my work and to providing the best care for our patients has not wavered. I've been on a personal journey of understanding and healing, and I appreciate your support as I navigate this path." There was a murmur of acknowledgement around the room, and Dr. Collins gave me a reassuring nod. It wasn't a complete resolution, but it was a start. Meanwhile, my involvement with the spiritual group continued to provide solace and insight. One evening, after a particularly enlightening session, Lydia and I had a long conversation about the challenges of integrating spiritual beliefs with everyday life. "It's not easy, John," she said, her eyes reflecting years of experience. "But it's important to remember that your spiritual journey is just that, yours. It doesn't have to fit neatly into anyone else's expectations or beliefs." Her words resonated deeply with me. I realized that part of my struggle was the pressure I felt to reconcile my new beliefs with the expectations of those around me. It was a delicate balance, but one that I was committed to finding. One weekend, I decided to take the family on another nature hike, hoping to find some peace and connection amidst the beauty of the outdoors. As we walked through the forest, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. It was a reminder that despite the challenges, there was a grounding presence in nature that I could always return to. At one point, we came across a small stream, and we all sat down to rest. Sarah, ever the curious one, asked, "Dad, do you think nature has something to do with your new beliefs?" I thought for a moment before replying. "In a way, yes. Nature reminds me of the interconnectedness of all things, something I've been learning about through my experiences. It's a reminder that we're all part of something bigger. Emily listened quietly, her expression softening. I think I'm starting to understand, John. It's about finding meaning and connection in new ways. I nodded, grateful for her openness. Exactly. It's a journey for all of us, and I'm glad we're in it together. As we continued our hike, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The path ahead was uncertain and filled with challenges, but it was also rich with possibilities. My spiritual journey was not just about discovering new truths, but about deepening my connections with those I loved and finding harmony between my beliefs and my everyday life. As my spiritual journey continued, the tension between my old and new selves grew more intense. The peaceful moments I found were increasingly overshadowed by challenges and conflicts, both internal and external. My relationship with Emily, though supportive, was strained by our different paces of understanding and acceptance. One evening, after another difficult conversation about our differing beliefs, Emily said, "John, I want to support you, but I'm scared. I feel like I'm losing the person I married." Her words cut deep, but I knew they came from a place of love and fear. "Emily, I'm still me. I know this is hard and I'm trying to find a balance, but I need you to trust that this journey is important for me and for us." As I navigated these personal challenges, my professional life also grew more complicated. One day, I received a call from a journalist interested in doing a story about my near-death experience and subsequent spiritual awakening. The hospital administration, however, was not thrilled about the potential publicity. Dr. Thompson called me into his office. "John, we've been approached by a journalist who wants to cover your story. While we respect your personal experiences, we're concerned about how this could impact the hospital's reputation." "I understand your concerns," I replied, "but I believe that sharing my story could help others who are going through similar experiences." Dr. Thompson sighed. "We're not saying you can't share your story, but we need to ensure that it's done in a way that doesn't compromise your professional integrity or the hospital's image." I agreed to carefully consider their concerns and to work with the administration if I decided to go forward with the interview. Meanwhile, my experiences continued to deepen. One night, I had a vivid dream that felt more like a vision. In the dream, I was walking through a dense forest, feeling lost and alone. Suddenly, a bright light appeared, and from it emerged a figure that radiated warmth and compassion. The figure spoke to me, saying, "John, your journey is just beginning. Trust in the path that has been laid before you." I woke up feeling a profound sense of peace and purpose. The dream had a clarity and realism that set it apart from ordinary dreams, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it was a message guiding me forward. The next day, I shared the dream with Lydia. She listened intently, her eyes alight with understanding. "John, it sounds like you've had a significant spiritual encounter. These experiences are often meant to guide and reassure us. Trust in what you felt." Buoyed by her encouragement, I continued to explore my spiritual path with renewed vigor. However, not all reactions were positive. At a family gathering, my older brother James confronted me about my changing beliefs. "John, I've been hearing some strange things about you," he said bluntly. "What's all this talk about spiritual experiences and near-death visions? You've always been the rational one." "I still am, James," I responded calmly. "But I can't ignore what I've experienced. It's changed my perspective on life and reality." James shook his head, frustration evident on his face. "I don't get it. You're a scientist, a doctor. How can you believe in things you can't prove?" "It's not about proof," I explained. "It's about faith and understanding that there's more to life than what we can measure. I'm not asking you to believe it, but I need you to respect my journey." The conversation left a lingering tension between us, but I remained steadfast in my commitment to my spiritual path. One evening, as I was meditating, I felt a sudden rush of energy. My vision blurred, and I found myself in a strange, otherworldly landscape. The colors were more vibrant than anything I had ever seen, and the air seemed to hum with a gentle, soothing energy. In the distance, I saw the same figure from my dream, beckoning me forward. I approached the figure, and as I got closer, I realized it was Mark, the man who had appeared in my visions before. "John," he he said, his voice echoing in the serene landscape. You are being called to a higher purpose. Your journey is to help others find their own paths to understanding and peace. The vision faded, leaving me with a profound sense of mission. I knew that my experiences were not just for my own growth, but to guide and support others on their journeys. As I integrated these profound experiences, I continued to face challenges and skepticism from those around me. My relationship with Emily was a constant balancing act, and my professional life demanded that I carefully navigate the line between personal belief and professional duty. Despite the difficulties, I felt a growing sense of purpose and connection to something greater than myself. My journey was far from over, and each new experience brought me closer to a deeper understanding of my place in the world and my role in helping others. The tension and challenges were real, but so was the profound sense of peace and purpose that came with each step forward. My spiritual awakening was a journey of discovery, filled with moments of doubt and fear, but also with incredible revelations and insights that reshaped my understanding of life and faith. As my spiritual journey progressed, I began to see ripples of change in those around me. My transformation seemed to act as a catalyst for others to explore their own beliefs and question their own understandings. This had both positive and negative effects on my relationships and daily life. One weekend, we decided to visit Emily's parents, hoping for a relaxing break from the recent tensions at home. Over dinner, Emily's mother, Susan, who had always been deeply religious, asked me about my near-death experience. I've been hearing a lot about your experience. John, Susan said, her eyes filled with genuine curiosity. It sounds like it was life-changing. It was, I replied. It's opened my eyes to a reality beyond what I used to believe. I've been on a path of discovering what that means for me. Susan nodded thoughtfully. I've always believed that God works in mysterious ways. Maybe this was his way of reaching out to you. Her words were comforting, but I could see the concern in Emily's father, Robert's eyes. He was a practical man who valued logic and reason, and my spiritual experiences made him uneasy. After dinner, Robert pulled me aside. John, I respect your journey, but I worry about the impact it's having on Emily and the kids. They need stability. I understand your concern, Robert, I said, but I believe that this journey is making me a better person and ultimately a better husband and father. I'm trying to find a balance that works for all of us. Back at work, the hospital administration decided to allow the interview with the journalist under strict conditions. They wanted to ensure that the focus remained on the medical aspects of my experience, rather than delving too deeply into the spiritual. The interview was set to take place in a few weeks, and I prepared myself to share my story publicly for the first time. In the meantime, I continued attending the spiritual group sessions. During one meeting, Lydia introduced a new member, a man named Paul, who had also experienced a profound near-death event. His story was different from mine, but equally powerful. As Paul shared his journey, I felt a deep connection with him. After the session, we talked for hours about our experiences and the challenges we faced integrating them into our everyday lives. Do you ever feel like you're living between two worlds? Paul asked. One foot in your old life and one in the new? Every day, I replied. It's a constant struggle to reconcile the two, but I believe that there's a purpose to all of this, even if it's not always clear. Paul's friendship became a source of strength for me. We supported each other through the ups and downs, sharing insights and encouragement as we navigated our spiritual journeys. At home, Sarah began to show a keen interest in my experiences. One evening, she came to me with a book on spiritual encounters that she had borrowed from the library. Dad, can we read this together? She asked. I want to understand more about what you've been through. I was touched by her openness. Of course, Sarah, let's read it together and talk about it. As we read the book and discussed its contents, I was amazed by Sarah's insights and questions. Her curiosity and willingness to explore these ideas gave me hope that my journey could positively influence my family. Emily, too, started to open up more about her fears and uncertainties. We had many late-night conversations where she expressed her worries about our future and the impact of my spiritual awakening on our relationship. I feel like I'm on the outside looking in, she admitted one night. I want to understand, John, but it's hard when I haven't experienced what you have. I know, Emily, I said, holding her close, and I'm grateful for your patience and support. This is new for both of us, and we're in it together. We'll find our way. One day, at the hospital, I encountered a patient named Maria, who was recovering from a severe accident. She was scared and struggling to find meaning in her ordeal. Remembering my own experience, I decided to share a bit of my story with her. I went through something similar not too long ago, I said gently. It was a near-death experience that changed my life. It's okay to be scared, but know that you're not alone. There's a path forward, even if it's not clear right now. Maria's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Dr. Davis. It means a lot to hear that from someone who understands. My interactions with patients like Maria reinforced my belief that my journey had a purpose beyond my personal growth. It was about helping others find hope and meaning in their struggles. As my story became more known within the hospital, I noticed that some colleagues began to approach me with their own questions and stories of spiritual experiences. It was as if my openness had given them permission to explore and share their own journeys. Despite the challenges and conflicts, my spiritual journey was creating connections and opening doors in ways I hadn't anticipated. The ripple effects of my transformation were reaching far and wide, touching the lives of those around me and bringing us all closer to understanding the deeper mysteries of life. As my spiritual journey continued, the conflicts in my life reached a critical turning point. The tension between my old beliefs and new understandings, coupled with the reactions of those around me, created a pressure cooker that was about to explode. The impending interview with the journalist loomed large. Although I had agreed to the hospital's terms, the thought of sharing my story publicly filled me with both excitement and dread. Emily and I had discussed it at length, and while she supported my decision, I could see the anxiety it caused her. The day before the interview, Emily and I had a heated argument. "John, I'm afraid of what this will do to us," she said, her voice trembling. "What if people judge us? What if it affects your career?" "I know it's a risk, Emily," I replied, trying to remain calm. "But I believe that sharing my story can help others. It's a part of my journey that I can't ignore." "I'm just scared," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "Scared of losing you to this new path, scared of the unknown." I took her hand and looked into her eyes. "I'm still here, Emily. I'm not going anywhere. We'll face this together, no matter what happens." The next morning, I sat down with the journalist Karen in a quiet room at the hospital. The camera crew set up around us, and I took a deep breath, preparing to share my story with the world. "John, can you start by telling us about your near-death experience?" Karen asked, her tone gentle and encouraging. I recounted the accident, the vision of the being of light, and the profound sense of peace and purpose that had followed. As I spoke, I felt a mixture of vulnerability and liberation. This was my truth, and I was finally sharing it openly. After the interview, I felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. I knew there would be repercussions, but I also felt a deep sense of purpose and clarity. That evening, I received a call from Lydia. "John, I saw your interview. It was powerful. Your courage to share your story is inspiring." "Thank you, Lydia," I said. "It wasn't easy, but I felt it was the right thing to do." As the interview aired, the reactions were immediate and varied. Some colleagues and patients expressed support and admiration, while others were skeptical or even dismissive. The hospital administration was cautious but ultimately supportive, recognizing the potential positive impact of my story. However, the most significant reaction came from my brother, James. He called me late one night, his voice tense with emotion. "John, we need to talk," he said. "Can we meet?" We met at a quiet cafe the next day. James looked troubled, his usual confident demeanor replaced by uncertainty. "I saw your interview," he began. "I don't understand everything you've been through, but I respect your courage. It's made me think about my own beliefs and the way I've dismissed things I can't explain." "James, I never expected you to understand completely," I said. "But it means a lot to me that you're willing to try. This journey has been as much about questioning and searching as it has been about finding answers." Our conversation was a turning point in our relationship. For the first time, We were able to connect on a deeper level, sharing our fears and hopes without judgment. At home, Emily and I continued to navigate our evolving relationship. One evening after putting the kids to bed, we sat on the porch, reflecting on the changes we had experienced. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," Emily began, "about facing this together. I want to be a part of your journey, John, even if I don't fully understand it." I wrapped my arm around her, feeling a surge of gratitude. "That means more to me than you know, Emily. We'll take it one step at a time." In the midst of these personal revelations, my professional life took another unexpected turn. Maria, the patient I had shared my story with, experienced a remarkable recovery. She attributed her newfound strength and hope to our conversation, and her family expressed profound gratitude. "Dr. Davis, you've given us a gift," Maria's husband said, tears in his eyes. "You helped us find hope when we thought all was lost." Maria's recovery became a beacon of hope for other patients, and I found myself becoming a confidant and guide for those grappling with their own spiritual questions. My story, once a source of fear and uncertainty, had become a source of light for others. However, not everyone was supportive. Some colleagues began to distance themselves, viewing my experiences as unscientific or irrational. Dr. Thompson, while generally supportive, cautioned me about blending my personal beliefs with my professional responsibilities. "John, it's important to maintain a balance," he said. "Your experiences are valid, but we must be careful not to let them overshadow our medical responsibilities." "I understand, Dr. Thompson," I replied. "I'm committed to being the best doctor I can be. My spiritual journey has only deepened my compassion and commitment to my patients." The critical turning point in my journey was marked by a profound realization. My experiences were not just personal but universal. They had the power to connect, heal, and inspire others. The conflicts and challenges I faced were part of a greater purpose, guiding me toward a deeper understanding of life, faith, and humanity. As I continued on this path, I knew there would be more obstacles and revelations, but with each step, I grew stronger in my conviction and more certain of the light that guided me. My journey was far from over, but I was no longer walking it alone. The weeks following my public interview were a whirlwind of emotions and events. While some embraced my story with open hearts, others responded with skepticism or outright hostility. The dichotomy between acceptance and rejection pushed me to confront the ultimate emotional and spiritual challenges of my transformation. One afternoon, as I was preparing for a busy day at the hospital, I received an unexpected call from Dr. Thompson. "John, we need to talk," he said, his voice uncharacteristically serious. "Can you come to my office?" My heart sank. I knew this wasn't just a routine check-in. As I walked to his office, I braced myself for whatever was coming. Dr. Thompson gestured for me to sit. "John, there have been some concerns raised by the board about your recent interview and its potential impact on the hospital's reputation." I nodded, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "I understand. What do they want me to do?" "There's talk of placing you on administrative leave until things settle down," he said gently. "They're worried about the backlash and how it might affect our patients and staff." I took a deep breath, fighting the urge to defend myself. "Dr. Thompson, my intention was never to harm the hospital or its reputation. I shared my story because I believe it can help others." "I know that, John," he replied, "but we have to consider the broader implications. I'm on your side, but we need to tread carefully." As I left his office, a mix of anger and helplessness washed over me. This was a pivotal moment. I had to decide whether to fight for my right to share my truth or to comply with the board's demands and potentially silence my voice. That evening, I discussed the situation with Emily. Her unwavering support bolstered my resolve. "John, whatever you decide, we're with you," she said, squeezing my hand. "But remember, your story has touched many lives. Don't let fear dictate your path." Her words echoed in my mind as I tossed and turned that night. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I contacted the hospital administration and requested a meeting with the board. Standing before them, I laid out my case. "I understand your concerns, but my experience and the message it carries are too important to be silenced. I believe in the power of sharing our stories to bring hope and healing. I'm willing to accept any consequences, but I won't stop speaking my truth." The room was silent as the board members exchanged glances. After what felt like an eternity, the chairman spoke. Dr. Davis, we appreciate your honesty and conviction. We'll take your words into consideration and inform you of our decision soon. Days later, I received the board's decision. I would not be placed on administrative leave, but I was required to attend a series of professional development workshops to better navigate the intersection of personal beliefs and professional responsibilities. It was a compromise, but one I could accept. Meanwhile, my brother James reached out again, this time with a request. John, I've been doing a lot of thinking since we last talked. I'd like to attend one of your spiritual group meetings. I want to understand more. His request was a breakthrough. It signaled a shift in our relationship and a willingness to explore the unknown together. James's presence at the next meeting was both surprising and heartening. He listened intently, asked questions, and even shared some of his own doubts and struggles. Lydia, always perceptive, facilitated the discussion with grace and empathy. James, it's brave of you to seek understanding. We're all on different paths, but we can support each other in our journeys. James's openness sparked similar reactions within the group. Members began to share more freely about their own conflicts and transformations, creating a deeper sense of community and solidarity. As my personal and professional worlds collided, I found solace in these moments of genuine connection. However, the true test of my convictions was yet to come. One night, Sarah woke up crying from a nightmare. I rushed to her room, finding her trembling and distressed. "Daddy, I dreamed you were taken away because of your stories," she sobbed. "I'm scared." Holding her close, I whispered soothing words. "It's okay, Sarah. I'm not going anywhere. Sometimes people don't understand, but that doesn't mean we stop doing what's right." Her fear was a stark reminder of the impact my journey had on my family. I needed to be there for them, to reassure them that despite the challenges, we were in this together. In the midst of these personal struggles, I received an invitation to speak at a local community center. The organizer, a woman named Grace, had seen my interview and believed that my story could inspire others. "Dr. Davis, your courage and honesty have touched many," she said. "We'd be honored if you could share your journey with our community." Standing before the audience, I felt a wave of nervousness. But as I began to speak, the nerves melted away, replaced by a deep sense of purpose. I shared my near-death experience, the challenges of integrating it into my life, and the ongoing journey of faith and understanding. After the talk, Grace approached me with tears in her eyes. "Your story has given me hope, Dr. Davis. Thank you for sharing it." Her words reaffirmed my belief in the power of personal testimony. It was a reminder that despite the conflicts and obstacles, my journey had the potential to bring light to others. As I drove home that night, I reflected on the decisions I had made and the paths I had chosen. Each confrontation, each challenge, had driven me closer to the climax of my transformation. I was no longer the man who had dismissed the possibility of a higher power. I was a man on a mission, guided by a newfound sense of purpose and a commitment to sharing the light I had encountered. The climax of my journey was drawing near, and I knew that the ultimate test of my faith and convictions was just around the corner. With my family by my side and a growing community of supporters, I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The events following my public interview and the board's decision brought me to the brink of a profound transformation. My professional life hung in a delicate balance, my personal relationships were under strain, and my inner world was in turmoil. As I stood on the edge of the most intense period of my journey, I knew that the resolution was close, but not without its final trials. One evening, Emily and I were having dinner when the phone rang. It was Lydia. "John, we need your help," she said urgently. "There's a young woman, Anna, who's been struggling with her faith. She's been in a severe car accident and is in critical condition. Her family is asking for someone to pray with them. They saw your interview and believe you can offer some comfort." Emily looked at me with concern as I relayed the message. "Go, John," she said softly. "This is important." I arrived at the hospital to find Anna's family gathered in the waiting room, their faces etched with worry and hope. They greeted me with a mixture of relief and desperation. "Dr. Seal Davis, thank you for coming," Anna's mother said, tears streaming down her face. Anna saw your interview and felt a connection to your story. She's been questioning everything, and now we don't know what to do. Taking a deep breath, I entered Anna's room. The sight of her hooked up to machines brought back memories of my own near-death experience. I felt a surge of empathy and a sense of responsibility. I took Anna's hand gently. Anna, I'm here. I know you're scared, but you're not alone. There's a light that's guiding you, just like it guided me. As I prayed with her, a profound peace filled the room. Her family joined in, their voices trembling but strong. This moment was more than just an act of faith. It was a testament to the power of shared belief and the human spirit. Hours later, as I left the hospital, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. My journey had brought me to this point, where I could offer solace and hope to others. But the true test of my convictions was yet to come. A few days later, the hospital board called an emergency meeting. The controversy surrounding my public declarations had reached new heights. Some patients and staff had expressed concerns, and the administration was under pressure to take decisive action. Dr. Davis, we appreciate your dedication to your patients, the chairman began. But we must address the growing concerns. Your recent activities, while well-intentioned, have created significant tension within the hospital community. I listened, my heart pounding. This was the moment that would determine the future of my career and my mission. Effective immediately, we're placing you on administrative leave pending further review, he continued. We understand this is difficult, but we must ensure that our institution remains a place of scientific integrity and respect for all beliefs. The room was silent as the weight of their decision settled over me. I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and a strange sense of liberation. Thank you for your time, I said quietly, rising to leave. I hope you understand that my intention was never to undermine the hospital's integrity, but to offer hope and healing. As I walked out of the meeting, I felt a heavy burden lift from my shoulders. This confrontation had pushed me to a critical turning point, forcing me to choose between compliance and authenticity. At home, Emily embraced me, her support unwavering. We'll get through this, John. Your journey isn't over. In the following days, I received an outpouring of support from unexpected quarters. Patients, colleagues, and even strangers reached out to share their own stories of faith and transformation, inspired by my public testimony. One evening, as I was reflecting on these messages, I received a call from James. His voice was filled with emotion. John, I've been thinking a lot about everything. I attended one of Lydia's meetings, and it's changed me. I've started to question my own beliefs, and I want to explore this further. His words were a breakthrough. Our relationship had reached a new depth, built on mutual respect and understanding. A few days later, Lydia invited me to speak at a community gathering. The event was packed, the air thick with anticipation. As I stood before the crowd, I felt a surge of nervousness, but also a deep sense of purpose. I'm here to share a journey, I began, my voice steady. A journey that has brought me from skepticism to faith, from isolation to community. It's a journey that has challenged me, broken me, and rebuilt me in ways I never imagined. The audience was silent, hanging on my every word. I shared my near-death experience, the conflicts I had faced, and the profound revelations that had guided me. As we navigate our own journeys, I concluded, we must remember that it's not the destination, but the path we walk and the light we share along the way that truly matters. As the event ended, people approached me with tears and gratitude, sharing their own stories of struggle and faith. It was a moment of profound connection and validation. Returning home that night, I felt a deep sense of peace. The climax of my journey was near, and I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. The conflicts, the confrontations, the decisions, they had all brought me to this point of transformation and clarity. With my family by my side and a growing community of supporters, I knew that the true resolution of my journey was within reach. The peak tension had set the stage for a profound resolution, one that would not only define my path, but also inspire others to find their own light in the darkness. The days following the board's decision and my increasing engagement with the community felt like the calm before a storm. I was at a critical juncture in my journey, where every action, every choice carried significant weight. The stakes were higher than ever, not just for me, but for my family and the growing circle of people inspired by my story. One Saturday morning, while I was helping Sarah with her homework, Emily received a call. I could see the worry etched on her face as she handed me the phone. It was Lydia. "John, you need to come to the community center immediately. There's been an incident." My heart raced as I hurried to the center. Upon arrival, I found a crowd gathered outside, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. Pushing through, I reached Lydia, who explained that a local religious leader, Pastor Collins, had arrived unexpectedly and demanded a public debate about my experience and the messages I was sharing. Inside, the atmosphere was tense. Pastor Collins, a staunch traditionalist, stood at the front of the room, his presence commanding. He was known for his uncompromising views and had a significant following in the community. "Dr. Davis," he began, his voice steady but challenging, "your recent declarations have caused quite a stir. Many in our community are questioning their faith and beliefs because of your story. I believe it's time we address this head-on." I took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. This was it, the climax of my journey, where my transformation would be tested to its fullest. "Pastor Collins, I respect your commitment to your faith and your role in this community," I started, choosing my words carefully. "But my experience is not about undermining anyone's beliefs. It's about sharing a journey of transformation, of discovering a truth that transcends our understanding." The debate that followed was intense. Pastor Collins questioned the validity of my near-death experience, arguing that it could be explained by science and dismissing the spiritual revelations I had encountered. "Many have near-death experiences, Dr. Davis, but that doesn't necessarily mean they've encountered divine beings or absolute truths," he asserted. "How do you justify your experience as a path to spiritual awakening?" I stood firm, recalling the profound peace and undeniable presence I had felt. "Pastor Collins, I understand your skepticism, but my experience was more than just a medical anomaly. It was a profound encounter that changed my entire being. It wasn't just about seeing something. It was about understanding and feeling a connection to a higher power that I had never believed in before." The crowd listened intently, their emotions palpable. Some nodded in agreement with the pastor, while others seemed moved by my words. "I'm not asking anyone to abandon their beliefs," I continued. "I'm simply sharing my journey in the hope that it can offer comfort and insight to those who are searching for answers, who are struggling with their own faith." At that moment, James stood up from the audience. His presence was a beacon of strength for me. "Pastor Collins, I was once as skeptical as you, but seeing the changes in John, feeling the impact of his story on my own life, I've come to realize that there's more to faith than rigid doctrines. Sometimes, personal experiences can open doors to truths we never imagined." His words created a ripple effect. Others in the audience began to share their own stories of struggle and transformation, inspired by my journey. It became clear that this was not just about me. It was about a collective search for meaning and faith. Pastor Collins, seeing the groundswell of support, softened his stance. "Dr. Davis, while we may not agree on everything, I cannot deny the impact your story has had on this community. Perhaps there is room for multiple paths to understanding and faith." The tension in the room eased, replaced by a sense of reconciliation and mutual respect. The debate had transformed into a dialogue, a bridge between differing perspectives. As the crowd dispersed, Lydia approached me with a smile. "John, you did it. You stood your ground with grace and integrity." Driving home that night, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and fulfillment. The climax of my journey had not only affirmed my transformation, but had also brought the community closer, fostering a spirit of understanding and acceptance. At home, Emily and Sarah greeted me with hugs, their support unwavering. "We're so proud of you," Emily said, tears in her eyes. "You've touched so many lives." Reflecting on the events of the day, I realized that the true climax of my journey was not just about my personal transformation, but about inspiring others to find their own paths to faith and understanding. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I was ready to embrace it with an open heart, guided by the light that had transformed my life. In the days that followed the intense debate with Pastor Collins, I found myself in a period of deep reflection. The journey that began with my near-death experience had taken me through valleys of doubt and peaks of revelation. I had faced skepticism, fear, and rejection, but also moments of profound connection and understanding. As I sat in my study one quiet evening, I contemplated the many faces and stories that had crossed my path. Each one was a testament to the power of shared experiences and the universal search for truth. My own transformation had not only altered my perception of life and faith, but had also become a beacon for others seeking their own answers. Emily walked in, carrying 2 cups of tea. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, handing me a cup and sitting beside me. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," I replied, taking a sip. "It's incredible how one experience can change everything." She smiled, her eyes filled with pride and love. "Your journey has touched so many lives, John. It's given hope to those who felt lost and inspired those who needed a nudge to question their own beliefs." Looking at her, I felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. My transformation had not been a solitary endeavor. Emily's unwavering support, Sarah's innocent faith, and the encouragement from friends like Lydia and James had been my pillars of strength. I turned to my journal, where I had chronicled every significant moment of my journey. Flipping through the pages, I revisited the pivotal experiences, the near-death encounter, the struggle with my beliefs, the profound revelations, and the conflicts that tested my resolve. Each entry was a step on the path to a deeper understanding of faith and purpose. The climax at the community center had marked a turning point, not just for me but for everyone involved. The public debate, initially a source of tension, had evolved into a powerful dialogue that bridged gaps and fostered mutual respect. It was a reminder that faith is not a rigid path but a dynamic journey, unique to each individual. I decided to write a final entry in my journal, summarizing the essence of my transformation. As I look back on this journey, I am filled with a sense of awe and humility. What began as a traumatic near-death experience has become a profound spiritual awakening. I have learned that faith is not about certainties, but about the willingness to embrace the unknown, to question, and to grow. Through every challenge and revelation, I have come to understand that true transformation is not about changing one's beliefs overnight, but about the gradual unfolding of deeper truths. It is about finding the courage to face doubts, the strength to seek answers, and the grace to accept that some mysteries will remain beyond our grasp. To those who have walked this path with me, I offer my deepest gratitude. Your support and stories have been the light that guided me through the darkest moments. Together, we have created a tapestry of faith that is rich, diverse, and ever-evolving. As I move forward, I do so with a heart open to new possibilities and a spirit ready to embrace the next chapter of this incredible journey. May we all find the light that leads us to our true purpose, and may we continue to share our stories, offering hope and inspiration to others. Closing the journal, I felt a profound sense of closure and peace. My journey had not ended, it had merely reached a new beginning. The lessons I had learned and the connections I had made would continue to guide me, shaping my path and the paths of those around me. I stood up, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. "Emily," I said, turning to her, "let's continue sharing our story. There's so much more to explore and so many more lives to touch." She nodded, her smile radiating warmth and understanding. "Together, we'll make a difference." As we prepared for bed, I felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The journey from skepticism to faith, from isolation to community, had been arduous but profoundly rewarding. I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, confident that the light of my transformation would continue to guide me and those around me. And so, with an open heart and an unwavering spirit, I looked forward to the future, eager to continue the journey of faith, discovery, and connection. As we reflect on this journey, I invite you to consider your own path. What questions have you been afraid to ask? What truths are you seeking? Our stories are powerful tools for connection and growth. Share your experiences, seek out new perspectives, and never stop exploring the depths of your faith and understanding. If this story has resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with others who might find inspiration in this journey. Together, we can create a community of seekers, united by our quest for truth and our shared humanity. Thank you for being a part of this journey. We look forward to sharing more stories of transformation and hope with you. Stay tuned for the next episode, and may your own journey be filled with light and discovery.